For a fistful of vinyl on KXLU, I'm Alec, and this is Ceschi.
Hey, I'm Ceschi from New Haven, Connecticut.
On the road again. That was a reference to Cormac McCarthy. 33 still sticking, fuck the police while the mark of the beast surrounds me through targeted marketing. Awfully ominous, I'ma be honest with all of these zombies making a mockery out of humanity, thinking that the meme is a revolutionary strategy. Please try to dream bigger than a 5-inch screen, and I fight and scream even if they don't hear me. Never wanted to be anything better than anybody, only wanna think of possibilities for everybody getting a little more free, but we're still trapped in the prison of death because of corporate greed. That's gangster shit, keep most poor but the few stay rich. They tell me that's how it is, but I never believe in more than this. When the captain of a slow sinking ship got locked up cause the motherfucker never snitched. Life can change so quick, grandpa's gone then the brother had a kid. Still singing these songs, don't know how to quit. They tell me that I got a Peter Pan complex, headed to my middle age, not grown yet. It's blowing on me, settling for the least evil in the race between rats. I don't know about that, I don't know about that. Straight at you with broken noses, watching friends die away youth through overdoses. We say minor threat while dads smoke crack in Jersey. We say bad brains was a straight at you with broken noses, watching friends throw away youth through overdoses. We say minor threat while dads smoke crack in Jersey. Take bad brains, take it all back, wish I could take it all back, take it all back, take it all back, wish I could take it all back, take it all back, take it all back, wish I could take it all back, take it all back, take it all back, wish I could take it all back, take it all back. Head in the lion's mouth, oh the silence feels so dumb. We've lost so many times, wouldn't notice if we won. They're sorry for me, I am a human, self-aware. Please don't ignore me, I am a human, life's unfair. One by one we'll spill our guts on the floor. Oh, one by one we'll try us. Children burst into flames on a battlefield somewhere, but my insides are numb and I'm struggling to care. This only for me, I am a human, self-aware. Please don't ignore me, I am a human, I am a human. It's irrelevant, it's so anything else worth mentioning. Show me your belief and not question it while I'm waiting for Jesus to resurrect. We're stuck in a system that will never represent most of us residents. I'm fucked in another tough luck of a death pocket up to my neck, so what? I go a little bit the same with a dime with a minute to the brain. And because the rap is another bad attempt to redefine pain. Teen angst never left these days. Guess that I can't win if I don't pay. The sting of failure never fades away, but it's all okay. David Bowie's ghost told me that we could be heroes one day. Been this way since I can remember. Really don't think it'll get much better. 35 candles dripping on a birthday cake, and I'm still living like a damn rebel. I don't got a boss, the worship any corpse in the cross. I never went to temple of Mars, I barely got a cause. But I still pray for the human race in my own way. Every word, each song.
Take it all back, wish I could take it all back. Take it all back, take it all back. Wish I could take it all back. Take it all back, take it all back. Wish I could take it all back.
That's one of them.
Nice.
Getting too fat for this thing.
Feeling good so far?
Good. Yeah, it's like feel like I had a morning workout.
That's cool. Fistful of vinyl is an athletic experience. You know?
I could tell.
Charge
your
for this
fitness level.
We're looking into CrossFit. It's
yeah, always keeps me on my toes.
another episode of the Claus Corner of the Zoom edition. Today's guest is a singer, songwriter, guitarist, and performance artist. He is the co-founder of Fake 4 Incorporated and has continued to play his music all over the world, including 5 continents. Some of his releases include Broken Bones Ballads, Fake Flowers, The One Man Band Broke Up, and Sad Fat Luck, just to name a few. His music transcends genres from punk, folk, rap, and even a Cuban folk song. In 2014, he won the Connecticut Music Awards for Best Hip Hop, and to this day, he continues to release thought-provoking and intelligent songs while being an ambassador atop the international indie hip-hop world. Please welcome to the Claus Corner, Ceschi Ramos.
Hi, hello.
How are you doing?
Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you on the show. I've known you for a long time. We're going to get into the whole history, but I want to start right now because as we're recording this, we're dead smack in the pandemic. So you, as a full-time musician with your only income comes from your music, how are you holding up during this whole thing?
It was shocking at first because I had a bunch of tours, bunch of shows canceled immediately. An entire year's worth of shows canceled in the United States and then in Europe, and it was shocking at first, but I've been able to make ends meet. Got some grants, got some loans.
That's good.
And also landed a commercial during this time. So
wait, let's stop right there. Tell me about the commercial.
I don't really like that. I don't love talking about that side of what I do, but occasionally my songs get picked up for commercials. So it's happened a few times, and it's for the Spanish channels. Actually, it was a song I did called Ceschi Ramos, and it was picked up for national TV for a charcoal briquette company.
Now, how did they find your music? Did you reach out to them or did they find you?
They found me through a company we work with called Marmoset that does licensing to a bunch of companies. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Overcast Hip Hop Festival.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was on Saturday. My performance was Friday and Saturday.
Now, you put that together, or were you the headliner?
No, I was just a headliner.
Okay.
That's actually, it's all run out of Cincinnati. Some of the hip hop community out there in Cincinnati put that together, and they asked me to do it, and it was for a good cause. So the Innocence Project, and so.
What was the cause?
The Innocence Project, trying to bail out folks who have been innocent people who are in prison, basically trying to help them with their cases, which is an awful lot of them.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, I want to discuss your recent releases. You had Sad Fat Luck, San Soleil, and Bring Us the Head of Francisco Falls. Are they connected in any way?
Yeah, they're a trilogy, and Bring Us the Head has not been released yet. I'm sure you were going to ask that next, but that pandemic has completely fucked up those. I don't know.
You can say whatever you want in here.
All right. Yeah, the pandemic has completely fucked up the plans for the third album. I had a whole plan to go to Canada. I had a whole routing in order to be there with my producer and work on a bunch of material out there. This is where we finished the albums, where we finished the other 2 albums. And that got all ruined by the pandemic. So, and I just also don't think it's a great time to release music. So I'm holding off till next year on that third part of the trilogy.
I love the first 2, so can't wait for the third part.
Thank you. I hope you like it. I've actually been funny enough, I've been recording a lot of guitar-based work out here while I've been out here, since most of my beat-based work is done with Factor, my producer out in Canada. We are working on stuff kind of long distance for now, but we don't finish anything. We always finish stuff in person, so that's put a damper on things. But yeah, I've done a ton of guitar based kind of recording out here. I don't know exactly what I'll do with it, but it'll come out in some way, shape, or form. So.
Well, I want to go back a bit because I first met you when your equally talented brother David, when you were singers for the band Dead by Wednesday, which was co-founded with your equally talented cousin Christian Elvis Lawrence. You definitely have a very talented musical family. So how did that come about?
Dead by Wednesday. So I know you know, but other people may not know that my cousin was in a band called Gargantual Soul for many years, and that band was kind of slowly taking a back seat. We kind of saw all the members kind of doing other things and moving on and moving away from Connecticut, and I think they eventually broke up. But during that, like the last period of Gargantual Soul, and if for those who know locally, Gargantual Soul got pretty well known in Connecticut. They had Rage Against the Machines management, and they played shows at the New Haven Coliseum with Rage, and at the Drive-In and Gangstar, and played Woodstock '99, and they did a bunch. Just they had an incredible run, and toward the end when they weren't, we could kind of see it kind of crumbling. My cousin just started recording 4-track tapes of riffs that he had written on guitar, basically thrash riffs, because he's like a thrash guy. Basically thrash riffs on 4-track, and he played drums on it. He just did it all himself, recorded himself, and then one day he convinced my brother to come and just do some lyrics. He knew that my brother and I have been making music for a long time, so he knew what we did, and we had already kind of established a small career as underground rappers or whatever we were, and so he knew that, and he basically just was doing it for fun, and then we loved performing it so much that I was just like, I remember being like, I miss hardcore shows. So I grew up in the hardcore scene in Connecticut. In my teens, I spent a ton of time at a spot called the Tune-In in New Haven, going to hardcore shows like every weekend, and I just missed the energy of those shows. Those are my favorite kind of shows. So that was the big reason to do Dead by Wednesday. I really wanted to play the shows again. We got a cool band together. Our friend Pat Garcia and Mike Modeste on the bass, and that was it. We went from there. In a short period of time, it grew really fast. Within I want to say 1 year. My cousin is a wildly persistent guy. He's such a persistent guy, and he grew that thing from nothing really, really fast. And we were on tour with members of Rob Zombie's band a year later. It was a horrible fucking tour. We got kicked off of it, actually.
Wait, why was that?
Well, we had beef with the band because they were prima donnas, and it's a band called Scum of the Earth, and they were prima donnas. They were used to that big arena rock, Rob Zombie tours and stuff. So they really treated us like second-class citizens on there, and we were also young and angry and just kind of didn't give a fuck. So
that's funny.
We were definitely at fault too. We were definitely not cool to them at times.
Was Rob part of this?
One time, I think my brother is he could be outrageous sometimes. I remember this on the last show in North Carolina. My brother we had been kicked off of the tour partially because we weren't they didn't like us, but secondly, because they couldn't afford to give us anything at that point. They were losing so much money. Like the shows were tiny. You know, this is a band with a big tour bus with like 7 flat screens in it. You know what I mean? Like they were paying for all this like big rock star shit, but they're people like 20 people were showing up to the shows. So
Yeah.
it was pathetic. I mean, they had like big crazy like demons on stage, like they had a whole thing, like a whole crew, and they just were in over their heads. So I understand now why they couldn't bring us on the road anymore, but we took it really personally, and my brother had like a 15-minute like rant about them at the end of a show, and then he fucked with their Pro Tools rig, and then we threw rocks at their tour bus at the end. I mean, we were assholes too. We really were.
Oh man.
But it was very
time.
memorable.
Sounds like it. Now, was Rob Zombie part of this tour, or was it just
No? It was Riggs, who's the guitarist of Rob Zombie, and it's his material that sounds exactly like Rob Zombie. It's like that sample based kind of like industrial, like
yeah.
It's like kind of like I was a White Zombie fan as a kid, so like it was kind of like it's kind of like late era White, like the last era of White Zombie mixed or Rob Zombie's solo material. It sounded just like that. Had like sampled drums and, you know, just heavy distorted guitars. Yep. And then he played a ton of Rob Zombie songs too. I forgot. He would like cover his bandmate, which is really kind of sad.
Did you tour with any other big bands back then? With Dead by
we did. Yeah, we did.
And I guess it went just as well.
Shortly after that, we again, because of my cousin's persistence and you know, willingness to try anything, he applied for this Psychopathic Records contest, where if you win the contest, you could get signed to Psychopathic Records, which is the label owned by Insane Clown Posse. So we did not win, but we got in like the top 20. And I mean, there had to have been 10,000 submissions. Like, you know, it was like, these people take Psychopathic Records very, very seriously. I had no idea we were even in the competition. Like, you know, I remember people being angry that we got so far because we clearly didn't know shit about the Juggalo scene at the time. But then they started calling us to, after we got so far along, they started calling us to open up shows. And I remember the first show we played was something called the Ball of Bash in Detroit. And it was like this Pimps and Hoes, like, Christmas party, and it was like every member of like the whole like Psychopathic Records circuit, and we were opening up, and it was crazy. From there, we got invited to the Gathering of the Juggalos, and then we also got invited to play 30 Dates with Insane Clown Posse and some of their other artists that they were developing. So it was crazy. I mean, you know, so I think the band started around 2015. By 2017, we were playing shows to thousands of people. It was pretty wild. I mean, it was a pretty fast climb, and we didn't sound anything like any of the other groups on those tours, but they were rigorous tours. I remember them just being grimy. It was just, you know, 7 guys in a van, sweating and sick and sleeping in our cold sweat and not showering and just kind of like not eating well. And I got sick like the second day, you know, and it was like 30 fucking days in a row. It was just.
You're the singer, so that's got to be very difficult.
Very difficult. I lost my voice about 4 shows in. And, you know, and it's just, you know, Dead by Wednesday's a lot of screaming. So it was rough. I mean, the drives were long, lots of long drives, lots of 10, 11, 14-hour drives.
You know what it reminds me of? Henry Rollins has a CD out, or it's a book as well, but it's called Get in the Van. It's his story with Black Flag. That's exactly what that reminds me of.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
it's so funny. I was watching some Rollins interviews last night with like Nardwar, and he was talking about those days. I mean, he was in his favorite band though. Like, you know, he was asked to be the singer of his favorite band. He was super psyched about it. But I'm so grateful for those times though. You know what I mean? Like that.
definitely.
That has molded me in so many ways. It's made me touring, being on the road as much as I've been on the road has made me able to accept anything. Like I can live in any situation. I could live with nothing at all. I feel like I could live under a bridge or in a penthouse somewhere. Like I feel like I've seen the dichotomy, you know, I've seen like the wild shifts of of what music will do that to you, you know.
Yeah.
One day it's like you're basically in a hole somewhere, fucking sleeping on a cat hair covered rug, cigarettes, and then the next day you're fucking for some reason you're like playing to 2,000 people and like put up in the nicest hotel rooms. Like, what? It's just the strangest job. But I mean, it's made me, I appreciate it all.
Well, just like your cousin, you proved that persistence pays off. I mean, with your solo career, you're the same way. We're going to get into that later, but you're just as persistent and you do just as many things as what, you know, Opus did with Dead by Wednesday and Gargantua Soul before that. So why did you and David leave the band?
I remember David had, you know, he probably wouldn't mind me talking about it now, but he had kind of like a nervous breakdown. He had he went through a lot. And at the same time, I should explain that we were in a band based in LA called Toca. So that was like our, you know, our project where we wrote all the music and it took forever to get off the ground, but we were actually signed by Snoop Dogg's management team. So that was looking like, you know, that was the same year we were, same year that was coming out was the year we toured with ICP with Dead by Wednesday. So like all these things were happening at once and it was a lot to handle. And in some ways, like being in Dead by Wednesday broke up Toca because our schedules are so messed up because of it. We were just doing a ton of stuff. And at that same time, I was already putting out solo records. So, and to be honest, that was actually the most, already back then, it was probably the most popular stuff I had out of everything. It was probably my solo material, you know? So it was just, there was like a whole underground scene around that stuff. So
what was it like working with Snoop Dogg's development team? Was that a good experience for you?
It was a trip. It was hard. It's so funny because, you know, I'm 39 now, and I remember turning 25 with all of Snoop Dogg's team, like them bringing me to Koreatown and like, I don't know, we were at some like karaoke bar or something like that. And, you know, I remember celebrating my birthday in LA with Snoop Dogg's entire like management development team, whatever. So, but back then I was so concerned about controlling every little aspect of the music I made. I was very, you know, I came from a very DIY scene, and it was hard for me to have input from these guys who I didn't necessarily agree with. We would just butt heads a lot. We had different tastes. We just did. They would come and, you know, have comments about the mixes or about song selection, and they tried to do some shady things, like they tried to master a bunch of our unfinished songs and unmixed songs just to try to like license them out and stuff. And I just found it to be, and even just the way they tried to sell us, they and market us, it all felt like their choices felt cheesy to me, and they still do in many ways. So we clashed off of that. But I'm a little more chill these days. I think I'd be easier to work with these days, to be honest. I've seen so much, but back then I was just like fired up and would not take no for an answer or whatever.
Very similar to when Prince first came out. They were going to have somebody, produce his record, and he was 17, 18 years old. He goes, no, the only way we're getting this record out is if I produce it myself. And they're saying, are you crazy? I think it was Quincy Jones who was going to produce it. And they're like, no, we have the best. And it's like, nope, I don't want him doing this. I like the fact that you have a vision and you know exactly how you want it and you've stood by it. So I respect that.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the record that came out. We did break up before it really came out, but it's a pretty awesome record. It's called Toca. You can stream it. I mean, it never really got promoted or anything aside from in LA. In LA proper, it actually made a lot of noise, like within the indie community out there. But it pretty much ended. We tried to do our first tour, and it was a disaster. Like bandmates didn't show up, and it was like a big, at its biggest, it was like 11 people on stage. So
My God,
and it was really hard to organize, but I'm still proud of the music we made.
Now in that band, did you sing and David play drums, or did you both sing?
We had 4 singers, so it was me and David both sang. David played drums, and in fact, David was named one of the top progressive drummers in Modern Drummer magazine that year.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah, top 10 progressive drummers, and that was 2007. So he was like on the path, as a drummer. He could have definitely gone way, way further. And then one of the main things that happened was that our grandmother got sick, and we're really, really close with my grandparents. So my brother came back. We both came back to take care of her. And she, took care of her for years until she passed away. So, and then my brother became just the caretaker for my grandfather after my grandmother passed away. So his entire 20s were basically spent taking care of our grandparents. So. And he had like a lot of things going on for him musically that he could have gone and pursued, but family was more important to him. So
I know sometimes he performs with you.
He does, yeah. Yeah, we just recorded. He plays on almost everything I do still, or he at least raps on almost everything I do with a guest verse or whatever, and plays drums. And we still have a band together. That's very similar, I guess, to what that band was in LA. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like material I write, and our friend Max is part of that as well. Max Heath. He's also a producer who's he works at a group called Child Actor. They're really talented. So they're like family. It's like family,
Well, in 2008, you started your own label, Fake 4 Incorporated. Does that name have a special meaning behind it?
Yeah. So I'm glad I told you the whole story before that. So one of the good things that came out of the whole Snoop Dogg management team fiasco was that they kind of legitimized us. We were like underground kids, and we didn't really have any interest in like publishing or any of that stuff. But they were like, no, before this record comes out, you have to get you have to sign up for ASCAP or BMI. But yeah, I signed up for ASCAP, and I remember with ASCAP, and I remember kind of begrudgingly doing it because it was kind of a pain in the ass, and I didn't think it mattered, and blah, blah, blah. I'm very grateful that they made me do that now. But
there was a club in Sellington, Connecticut that got sued because they didn't sign up for ASCAP and the bands were playing cover songs, and the club had to shut down for a while. So yes, I'm so glad that you did sign up with them.
Yeah, no, I think that's such bullshit, but yeah, that happens. It's sad when that happens. But yeah, so with ASCAP at the time, they were like, okay, pick 5 names, you know, and you know, Fake Flowers was my first album as Ceschi. I have 4 fingers on my right hand, and I thought it was also funny to be like, to kind of make a mockery out of this being forced to do this. So I called it Fake for Music. And it was kind of like fake it until you make it shit. It was like which is also, yeah. Uh, yeah, so that was just one of the names I picked on out of 5, and that's the one ASCAP chose, and it stuck. And
like you said, you're the king of DIY. You remind me of Ian MacKaye from when he was in Minor Threat. He did the same thing.
Huge fan.
Oh yeah. And did you ever have a chance to play with him or meet him?
Yes, I got to meet him when I went to Trinity College. I got a scholarship to Trinity, and a bunch of awesome people would come through there, but Ian was one of them, and he just spoke. And he stayed around with my friend. I remember my friend Christian Sriracha and Sriracha is now he's a professor in Colorado, but at the time we were just like hardcore kids, and he stayed around just answering our questions after the thing was over. Ian is the realest, as real as they come, as honest as they come.
I never met him, but I have seen plenty of interviews with him, and I know that he and Henry Rollins were the best of friends when they grew up in Washington, and they both had that same mentality. And I've met Henry, I don't know how many times, and he's the same way. Very down to earth. He'll talk to you for as long as you want, and just that they knew where they came from, and they never forget it. And I love that about them. And yeah. I remember Ian was just like the way he was putting the records together. I mean, I've seen so many different interviews with him, and just how he, came out with Minor Threat and Fugazi and the other bands he's been in. But that's cool. There's one person I want to talk to you about, because you played with him at the Space in Hamden. HR from the Bad Brains. What was that like? That was great.
Another huge influence for me. I've met HR many times now. One of my, I think I've only played with him once, but I've actually met him at least 4 or 5 times, and every time it's almost like meeting a different person. He's definitely a unique character.
Yeah,
really kind, but also distant in his. I'm not trying to be disrespectful when I say he's kind of like out to space in some ways, but.
Well, did you ever see the documentary Finding Joseph?
I have not seen that yet.
All right, well, that explains a lot, because he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. They never knew he had that. All these years.
That makes total sense. Yeah. I've seen the Bad Brains a bunch of times. So yeah, and I remember there was this one time, and this is kind of funny because we were my brother was friends with these kids. My brother went to Wesleyan in Middletown, and he was friends with these kids that were in a band called The Management, and they became a big like pop rock band, MGMT. And I remember being at a Bad Brains show with MGMT, Andrew and Ben and my brother and I, and we were all chilling together and watching. HR that day was at Toad's place. He just decided to stop. He decided he didn't like punk that day or something like that. And the guys, you could tell the guys were so used to this.
Yeah.
Like I remember Daryl Jennifer, the bassist, first being like, fuck this, and like pulling, like basically like tossing his bass away and just going down backstage. Eventually, the only person left on stage is HR, and HR gets on the drum set and he just starts chanting these like Rasta chants, and it's like, I Joseph Selassie, and he's just like, and we're staring at it, we're staring at this legend, that we love doing this, and we're just like, what the fuck is happening? Because I swear they only got through like 3 songs, maybe 4, you know, and it was just it. And I remember HR never left stage that night. He just everyone just starts bailing and getting like free vouchers to go back. The only other time I got a free voucher like that was when I went to see ODB. And he didn't fucking show up. So that I remember we got free vouchers for ODB and free vouchers because of Bad Brains. But yeah, you know, like come on, like Bad Brains such a huge influence for me.
I love it. I mean,
One of
eye
those
against
bands
eye.
that, yeah, like I got into them because of a geometry teacher of mine
Really?
who gave me the tape because I was too young for like the prime day years of Bad Brains. But my geometry teacher was like, "You need to listen to this," and it just blew my mind. And
I'm your cousin's age, so I'm about 11 years older than you, so I was able to see all these bands. You had to tune in. For me, it was the Anthrax, the Breckenwood, Streets, and then Sneakers in Brantford. So I went to all these clubs, and I saw HR.
I didn't even know Sneakers in Brantford existed. That's cool.
Oh yeah, it was a great club. I saw so many great bands there. But I saw HR on his own. I also saw Bad Brains with their new singer, and I loved both bands. HR was in a good mood that day, luckily. But in the documentary, you said it perfectly. Just like you said, they were so used to it. They were so disgusted with him because they had no idea what was wrong with him. They thought he was just being a rock star. And Rick Ocasek from the Cars actually produced
He produced Eye Against Eye. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, come on, and they were ready for superstardom, and HR's like, nope, I don't want it. Like you said, I'm not in the mood for that today. That's basically what he was like, and nobody knew. And it wasn't until very recently, which now in the documentary, you got to check it out. His girlfriend's taking care of him, and he's on medication now, and he's starting his solo career. And I think, that came out before you played with him.
When I played with him, he seemed like way more level.
Yeah.
He was just like a quiet old guy, you know? Yeah. And it was like a reggae set, and they did play like 3 Bad Brains reggae songs, and they did it really, really well. I mean, his energy is not what it used to be. He's an older guy now, you know? But it was still awesome. I mean, those are fucking amazing songs, you know? So
it's great that you got a chance to play with them. Let's get back to you because we were talking about Fake 4 Incorporated, and I want to talk about the bands that you have on your label. How many bands currently are signed to your label?
Well, we don't really do things like in a traditional, like a band being signed to the label. We do things project by project, and it's all pretty family based. If you're part of Fake 4, like that means you've played shows with us. You're personally my friend. You're like somebody I trust, and I really respect musically. That's doing something really unique. Those are the bands that are on the label. It's a wide variety of genres, but we're mostly known for left field hip hop. You know, really like boundary pushing hip hop. And you know, one of the key bands, for instance, who started on Fake 4 and have never left, and who have had an awesome career is Dark Time Sunshine. They literally just turned in a new album to me like yesterday, so I'm really excited about that. We have a whole new slew of young artists, and they're like all like all people I really care about personally too, you know. So it's cool. See All Hughes from Bridgeport just dropped something. He's an amazing rapper. Chris Condi is working on something. Moody Black. They're a noise rap band. There's a bunch of cool stuff. Gregory Pepper. It's like really, it's indie pop stuff from Canada, more like Beach Boy influence or like Elliott Smith influence. Like we're all over the place.
I love that. Well, you know what impressed me, because you mentioned that it's more like a family thing, and I saw it firsthand when you played the State House in New Haven, because I think it was Astronautalis. He was on stage and he said, "You know what? I gotta thank Ceschi. He's probably one of the only artists that pays me." He was so impressed that you're actually one of the few people that actually paid him. And
I did, yeah. He had a successful record, and I remember I had never invested so much into a record before that one, and it was called "This Is Our Science," and he did super fucking well, and that's just how we roll. By the end of that year, it made all its money back and a little bit of profit, and
Wow.
I gave him all the rights back, and so that's what that's what he was talking about.
Now, do you send them on
We don't
tour?
own anything. Like we license everything. Yeah, and at that time he kind of exploded at that time. Like that was for him, it was like a big.
Well, I love the fact that you had different members of different bands come up and sing your songs with you. You helped sing some of their songs. It was just a fun time. I've seen you several times at that club and in other places.
Yeah.
You and I seem to run into each other a lot, like in different shows. But I remember
I'm glad you were at that show. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I saw you actually twice. It was a Sad Fat Luck or Sans Soleil release party. It was one of those records, and then I saw you another time after
that one, and then
yeah.
Then we did Sans Soleil one too. Yep.
All right, so on December 9th, 2010, your life was thrown into chaos. Tell me what happened.
Oh, yeah. So that was the day that I was set up in a marijuana bust by a mule who was like a driver from California who ratted me out. Basically he picked me out of a bunch of people with connections to the marijuana industry, and he ratted me out, and there was a big raid in my family's house, and so I ended up basically giving a forced confession so that the police wouldn't take my grandfather and my 98-year-old grandfather at the time, my mother, and my brother away, because they were threatening to arrest everybody. So
they were sound like they were trying to scare you to get you to confess. They're like, we're gonna throw your whole family in jail. Unfortunately,
pretty much, yeah. They were pretty aggressive about it too. It wasn't. Yeah.
So
And they didn't allow me to speak to an attorney. They actually forced me not to.
I'm surprised it wasn't kicked out. That's not right. The first thing they say is you have a right to speak to an attorney. That should have been kicked out right then.
Yeah, they don't actually like. If you know anything about the police, they don't always follow the rules.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I demanded to speak to an attorney multiple times, and then craziest thing is my grandfather demanded to speak to an attorney. A 98-year-old man, they're like, sit down, old man.
Oh my
they were
God.
like assholes. They were fucking, and this is after like they held like 10 guns to the back of my head, like.
Yeah. So what happened? I think this guy got pulled over in Chicago, and then he just saw gave your name instead of because it was 100 pounds.
Yeah. So it was he was a driver connected to somebody I knew. Actually a really good friend of mine. They were mutual acquaintances. And he kind of he had met me once before, and so basically he threw everything in my lap when he was pulled over. And I heard later that he maybe mentioned like 6 other people, but I was the only one to ever face consequences because I never gave anyone up or anything. So
when he did that, they set it up. They're like, all right, you go to his house and say I have a present for you, and then leave. And that's when the cops came a little bit later.
Yeah.
Is that how it happened?
Yeah, they wrapped these boxes of marijuana in Christmas gift wrap, and they had it in the back of his. He had it in the back of his car. He kind of guilted me into letting him into the house by being like, "Hey, man, I'm here from California. I've been driving forever. Really got to take a piss." And I was like, "Oh man, I don't like my house is." In the morning, it was chaos in that house. But I was like, I felt for him because I was a traveler, Yeah. So I understood. I let him in to take a piss, and he was really pushy about these boxes, and I was like, "Hey, man, I remember this is an odd detail, but I remember being like, hey, can you just relax on all that? Can you help me bring this like exercise bike up? You got a nice truck, and maybe you could help me recycle it, and bring it to the dump. And so he's helping me with that. And so none of the marijuana was actually exchanged other than one box he had brought out. So all the rest of it just stayed in his car. Because I was like, like, that's a fucking lot. I mean, I knew what he did. So I was like, I didn't expect, I knew that wasn't all for me either. So I remember he took one box and put it in my garage and then helped me bring this exercise bike up. Next thing I know, all these undercovers with like guns threw me in the snow and like put guns to my head. And he was like, what's up? He was like acting like he didn't know what was happening. But, I found out later, obviously he was all in on it. And cops had driven all the way from Illinois with him, followed him, and the Connecticut drug enforcement
agency, DEA.
So, or the drug task force. It was like so many departments: New Haven police, the drug task force, DEA, Chicago. Like, it was so many fucking cops in my house at that time, and it was insanity. Like, it was insanity. I remember my mother locking the door, thinking that I was getting mugged, which I understand her fear, but it's like, damn, Mom, just leaving me out for the wolves. She was like, lock that shit. But yeah, I'm glad I can laugh about it now because it was definitely traumatic for a long time.
Can't imagine. So how much time did you actually do?
I did 4 months and all in all, and then I had it was like, okay, so I had an 18-month sentence, but in Connecticut, if you know anything about like prisons in Connecticut, we tend to do half time immediately especially if it's a nonviolent or like first offense. So I was gonna do 9 months, and then I got into another program called transitional placement. Because there's transitional supervision, which is what cuts your time in half. That's basically sends you back to your family on parole early. And then there's transitional placement. And transitional placement is you go to Middletown to this mental health institution basically, and you do like NA classes and shit. And it's like the transition for, I was with a lot of guys there that were getting out after like 30. I remember one guy had been in longer than I was alive.
Oh my God.
And he was just getting out into the world, and he looked like, like a deer in headlights. And he had murdered somebody, so he was like, yeah, it was kind of crazy. But yeah, it was like a halfway house at the end. So it was really like, I was really, really lucky in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Did that prevent you from touring, leaving the country, leaving the state at the time? Were you on probation?
Yeah, well, I was on parole, and for a year after I got out, and so it's more strict than probation. But I didn't know anything about parole officers really at that time, but I got the coolest parole officer ever. He was super interested in my music, and he actually, after a while, so maybe after like 6 months, he started letting me go for week-long travel.
Good.
So I was able to do some little shows here and there, no longer than a week. And I'd come back and check in with him, and yeah, he was really cool. But I've heard that's not the case for all of them, but he really was.
Glad he was a fan.
Yeah, he checked out all my stuff, and he was like, "Oh, you talk about this and that. What do you?" I remember him like going down this like JFK conspiracy hole with me. Super interesting and genuinely nice guy, and he was also from the neighborhood where my family's from, Fairhaven. So he just like, yeah, we just I genuinely like that guy. He was like a nice parole officer. He was just like a social worker, you know. People think of parole officers as cops or something because they haven't gone through the system, but parole officers are usually on your side. They're not like cops. They want you to do good. They do. Um, they're more like social workers there for you to
I
help
mean,
you
they're
react.
always saying prison is for reform, but then when you get out of prison, a lot of people don't want to give you a chance. Like I went to in Pennsylvania, there's an Eastern State Penitentiary. It was a tour, and they were talking about that. They said in other countries, you know, it's all about reform. In the U.S., it's like, nope, sorry.
Way.
It's like, well, then what did you do your time for? That was where you're supposedly were being, you know, learning your lesson, being reformed. Even though yours is a completely different case because you were set up, you were innocent in that. So I mean, that stinks altogether. But
I mean, I felt sorry for myself in a lot of ways, especially because it was marijuana, and it was just like watching the United States change at that time. It felt like I was being robbed of some of my life. But yeah, the prisons don't reform you, but you can choose reform if you want it. You can make the best of that time, and I think I did make the best of that time, and I think I actually did need that time on some levels, because my life had been, I was like touring nonstop, and I was just involved with too many things, and part of that recklessness is why this happened. I had no idea this guy. It caught me off guard because I had fucking no idea this dude was gonna be there. It was like the weirdest. Um, yeah, I was really caught off guard by everything, but
did
I
you
just
do a
was
lot of
I was
writing.
I was living too fast, you know what I mean? So that's the way I look at it. Was like it forced me to slow down in a positive way.
Good.
Not that it reformed me. Like the prison system did nothing to reform me, but the choices I made did a lot to reform me and help me over the end. I read a lot. I read a ton. I wrote a lot. I exercised more than I ever had in my life, probably. So it was all good.
Do a lot of writing while incarcerated.
Yeah, I wrote a lot of poetry, mostly not songs. Some of them became songs. There's a song called Prison Sporks that I sing. That's like it came out on a 12-inch vinyl with my friend Pat the Bunny.
Yeah.
That was really a poem that I kind of made into a punk song afterwards. Yeah.
You ever think of coming out with a book of poetry? Because I have a.
Yeah.
I'm telling you this for a reason, because I have a self-published book. My friend is starting his own company called R.I.P Publishing, and he put my book out in that. I listened to your lyrics, and your lyrics are so insightful, so intelligent. I mean, you could go from David Koresh to like the riots in '91. I mean, I listened to your lyrics. I mean, I almost know your life just by listening to your songs, like talking about your friends committing suicide and all the things that you're going through, how you're feeling. So I think that, and I know that you have the most rabid fans. I've seen your audience, and they are with you every second of the way. They're singing every line with you, every word. And I think that your poetry might help a lot of people say, I can relate to that. That means a lot to me. Now, they don't feel like they're alone. So I think that a book of poetry would do a lot of good for your fans, or not even your fans, people in general.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've been asked to write books by different publishing houses, and I have never. Yeah, even when I was younger, even before my music stuff really was even out, I I had been asked to do poetry books. This is more in like the slam era. I was like 18, 19 years old, but I never followed through. I haven't. It's something that I'd like to do in my lifetime. Yeah, but what I can say is that during this pandemic, one of my friends named Bree Rolfe, she hosts these writing groups that I'm a part of, and so I have been writing. They kind of forces me to write when I normally wouldn't. So I have been writing more poetry and prose just because of her and her suggestion to start this writing group. That's been really cool, and sometimes that just sets me off on writing songs. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm a songwriter first and foremost, but yeah, I've got stuff. I got stuff that I'd like to work on when I can finally take some music projects off the list.
Well, I mentioned with your lyrics, they seem very autobiographical. Is that true, or are some of these just an extension of how you really feel? Like sometimes you talk about like, you know, what you're going through in life, but is that sometimes where you're just saying, well, I don't really feel like this all the time, but this is how I feel some of the time, and just it's for a good song? Or is everything that you put in your lyrics come from your life?
I would say like probably 98% of it. There's moments when I use exaggeration and, you know, I'm trying to paint pictures and stuff like that with the lyrics, but almost all of it's autobiographical.
Now, do you find that great work comes out of adversity? So I've talked to other musicians and other artists in different fields, and some people say yes, that their best work came out of adversity. Now, with you, with what happened in 2010, you know, maybe it was a learning experience, and you were able to write a lot, and you were able to slow down a little bit. Do you think that that helped you with your creativity?
Yeah, that time period specifically helped create the album Broken Bone Ballads, and I think a lot of people would say that that's their favorite record of mine, and it changed my life. That record, it really did, and so.
I love them all, but lately I've been listening to that one and Sad Fat Luck. Just those two. I've been listening to over and over again on loop, continuous loop. I love those two.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, those definitely took the longest to make out of everything I've ever done. I would say, just because it took a lot of life to make those records. You know what I mean? Like, it took a lot of life to write those lyrics, and had to be the right timing.
I think it's called "Take It All Back" 1 through 4. Am I correct? There's a song. All right. The reason I like that song is because you go from, say, rap to punk to a pop song all in a matter of like 3 minutes. I love that. It's great watching you perform that live, because it's just like bam, bam, bam.
That's a funny. The reason I did that song like that, and I don't even know if I've ever mentioned it in a interview, but the reason I did that like that is because I wanted to make a 7-inch, and I wanted to fill it with, you know what I mean? Like, you know, you can't fit that much on a 7-inch. So I was like, oh, I want to make a 4-minute song that has 1 minute of each thing. And It's not exactly that, but that's pretty much, we called it 4 minutes forever, because it was just like, oh, okay, kind of make like this little mini rap opera thing, rap punk thing. And we wanted to do Factor Chandelier, my producer, that I work with a lot, and we wanted to do another side that was 6 minutes, that would be like 2 or whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
You have very eclectic taste. Where does that come from?
Just probably my upbringing and curiosity. I grew up listening to a lot of like Caribbean music. So like my father's from Puerto Rico, my mother's Italian, from New Haven, but first generation from New Haven, and she lived in Puerto Rico, and they're like big salsa fanatics, and also folk, like there's a genre of Caribbean, specifically like Cuban and Puerto Rican folk, called Nueva Trova, and that they were into that, but then they were also into like the Talking Heads and Tracy Chapman and stuff. I mean, and then my father like showed me Public Enemy for the first time. You know, like I Yeah, I was just always interested, and I played classical music growing up too, you know. So
You
uh,
also had the best of both worlds because your father ended up moving to California. So you had the West Coast influence and you had the East Coast influence. Then
yeah,
when you started living full time in New Haven, you were able to bring it all together, all your
exactly.
influences.
Yeah, I moved to New Haven when I was like 13, and at that time, so this was like the mid 90s, or early 90s, or basically like 94 or something like that, 93, and yeah, 94, I guess.
Yeah.
The indie rock, I mean, the punk and hardcore and ska and scene in New Haven was awesome. You know, like Blind Justice was out, and you know, all the stuff at the tune in. I remember going to the tune in like my first what to watch my cousin. My cousin was in a band called Violent Industry, which I
Yeah.
love.
My band used to play with his band,
Oh,
Violent
what was
Industry.
that?
Yeah, that's where I first met your cousin. We played
What was
back
your
in at the Brickenwood. We used to play the Brickenwood all the time. Then other clubs, and I'm trying to think where it was. Over in his area, because over by Guilford and
yeah,
East Haven, there used to be some smaller clubs. But yeah, I had such a great time back then because, like you said, your cousin's more of a thrasher.
yeah,
So,
he's a thrasher. Yeah, he's a thrash guy. He big
but
like yeah.
so my band, his first band was originally entitled Sapphire, then they changed to Violent Industry. So I knew
Yeah,
him even back when it was Sapphire. That's how far back
yeah.
I go with him.
You are in the know, my friend.
Oh yeah, I've known him probably since 87, 88.
That's crazy. 6 years old or something like.
Well, you mentioned. I mean, you were probably way too young. Did you ever see that band perform live in Violent Industry?
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I got to see them live. There were some shows. I I think it was called the Madison Coffee House or the Madison Arts. It was later called the Madison Arts Barn,
Yeah,
and they did like all ages shows. I went to some I loved and Toad's Place. I saw them at the end.
yeah.
That one show where I believe it was Don Dre got his hair cut on fire.
I missed that one.
Tommy Tommy blew fire. He cut Don Dre's
That's funny.
hair on fire. Holy shit.
Wow,
Yeah,
I missed that one.
so those were like that was one of the last VI shows. But yeah, I
And then
love.
the Sting as well. I don't know if you ever went to the
I
Sting in
knew
the Brick.
about it. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, I didn't go, but I knew about it.
They had a lot of good bands back then there
There was
too.
a
But
club in Norwalk I remember going to. Once in a while.
Anthrax.
Yes. Yeah.
That was you would if you were a little bit older back then. They had Black Flag, Henry Rollins. That's where I saw HR and I saw the Bad Brains. They had
Yeah.
a Minor Threat, DRI. I mean, all the great bands, all Descendants, all these
Yeah.
great
One of
bands.
the yeah, was it always called the Anthrax? Because I feel like by the mid '90s, maybe was it? Maybe it was still.
Well,
I
what happened was
remember specifically because there was one show that I went to with my cousin, and my brother was little. My brother was like 14 or something, you know,
yeah,
at the time, and he might have been 13. And I remember my cousin made him like sit in the drums in the kick drum because it wouldn't stay. And then later on that day, we saw Norwalk. There's parts of Norwalk that are just crazy, and we saw a full-on gunfight. Like fools like pulled out Uzis at the gas station. We started fucking shooting at each other at
yeah.
the gas station, like right outside of that club. So yeah,
That,
it's
that
memorable.
sounds like the one. It was what it was. What happened was they started off in Stamford. It was an art house, and then the owners, Brian and Sean, I knew them from going to the club all the time. They wanted a bigger spot, so they got a little place in Norwalk. So it never changed names. But what happened was the building was right next to a bunch of condos, and the people were complaining that people were outside drinking, having sex on the lawn, and they complained, and the town shut it down. So that was probably, I want to say, late 90s that they shut that club down.
Okay, yeah. So that was definitely it. That was definitely it. Yeah, because I must have been there like '96 in the early days of G Soul.
Oh, yeah.
Early, because G Soul like they took off pretty fast too. Like they started playing big shows like a year or two in. I remember like at their biggest. They were like packing, like selling out Toad's Place for sure.
It was funny because I had your cousin on my show and we talked about it, and he said that he was telling me what happened with the band. But my favorite story is that they wanted Flavor Flav to be in the band, and the rest of the band said no.
Yeah, I met Flavor Flav. No, not Flavor Flav. I met I met Professor Griff through Gargantuan Soul, and I did meet Flavor Flav as well a different time, but that was so odd. But I was there at a session that they did with Professor Griff, who was hotly contested. Yeah, he's a controversial figure in hip hop. But
what about Flavor Flav? What was he like?
Just super like outgoing and
seems like he's just all flash, he's all an act. That's the impression I get from him. And that's why even your cousin said, he was just put him on the band, have him dance around stage. Who really cares? But he said
because they were they had this weird connection to Public Enemy, and they produced, and like the producers that the original production team that for Public Enemy and Gargantuan Soul had some really cool connections to Rage Against the Machine, Public Enemy, like it's fucking awesome. Yeah. Like,
and that goes back
so much potential. In fact, like not yesterday, but a few days ago, I went back and I looked at their Farm Club video that they were on. This, like, the USA Network had this show called Farm Club, and they flew them out, and Matt Pinfield was the host, and Wu-Tang was on the episode with Gargantuan Soul, or at least my cousin said he met Wu-Tang backstage that day. Mystical was on the episode. Like all these, it was just there was a time when, live music was on TV, like national TV. Like that's like they had a whole live music TV show. That's crazy to think about now. MTV doesn't even play music anymore, so it's like,
I know. Definitely, times have definitely changed. They have to come out with a separate division for MTV so they could play just music.
Yeah, right. Like that is, I guess MTV2 is that? I don't even know any of that.
Yeah, I don't know either, but I think it is called MTV2. But you have an interesting take on the current music scene. What is your view on people stealing your music?
People stealing my music, like fans, or like people like copying me?
Well, you made a comment very recently that I was reading, and I loved your take on it because I agree with you. And do you know what I'm talking about?
No, I don't. I can't remember.
You said you didn't mind people stealing your music because it gives them a chance to hear who you are.
Oh yeah. I don't mind at all. I mean,
you said as long as they do it, they're not doing it. They're not doing it legally, but they're taking. I respect that because I had this conversation with another musician, and I said, you know what? Maybe you won't make as much money this way, with people buying your music. But then if they like it and they heard you, they're going to go to see your shows. They'll buy shirts. They'll buy other CDs.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, the sales do not support me in any way. They're like a nice tip. The sales, my record sales, they're like, I would make, if it was up to me, I would do everything, pay what you feel. You know what I mean? It could be $0 or $100, whatever. But I guess last year a lot of people really went out of their way and really supported Sad Fat Luck and Sans Soleil, the trilogy, and it was awesome, and that was different. Like, people went out of their way to really support. But if it was up to me, and I always like put a lot into the vinyl and into the CDs and the whole. I want to make it like a real experience for people. But
you brought that. Wait, stop right there for a second. Let's stop right there for a second because I wanted to bring that up because I love the fact that you put your releases on vinyl, because I grew up in a time in the 70s where vinyl was the big thing, and I missed the vinyl because, first of all, you have the cover art. I love the crisp sound of it, and my favorite is the liner notes. So the fact that, you open up your albums and you'll see the liner notes, the cover art, and I miss that. And when I see your table at your shows, and I love the fact, you have cassettes, vinyl, then you download the music. So the fact that you're like representing every format, I think is a great thing.
I'm a big fan of like artifacts, like if you're really into something by, you know, if you're really into a certain author, you're gonna buy the book, right? You're not gonna. I mean, I don't know. I never got into the ebooks thing. I've never.
Me neither.
did
I
it.
always prefer to have a hardcover or a soft paperback in my hand. I do not
I
like
like
the
the artifact. I just feel like there's something sacred about that, and
Yeah.
I think, and in my head, it's like I think back to being a kid and just, you know, the excitement I get looking through liner notes and seeing like
Yes.
silly things. Like I remember reading like STP. What's the first Stone Temple Pilots album?
I
Plush.
remember. I know what you're talking about. I cannot think of it.
Whatever that album. I remember like reading that and being like, oh, they thank Ice-T, because I loved Ice-T. Original Gangster is like my favorite rap tape at that time. So I was like, whoa, they thank Ice-T. And like I remember just making the connections and looking at like producers' names, and like I got nerdy about it. And I just feel like if somebody else could have that experience, even if it's 10 people out of the 1,000 people that buy it or whatever, like that's awesome, you know?
Yeah,
like,
no, I agree with you. And I'm one of those people, and I love the fact that you're doing that. And I love the fact that you're going with the times. You're not being reluctant about it. You're like, you know what? It's not going to change. This is how music is going to be from now on. So let people take music if they want to. But that gives you a wider audience in a way, which I want to talk about.
yeah. I've had so many people come up to me and be like, I stole all your shit over the years. I've had people come up and be like, here's $100 just for like,
wow,
for doing what you do, like at a show. Or I've had people give me more at a show, like, and I've, you know, it's always a surprise, but they're like, yeah, I still like, you know, I illegally downloaded all your shit since 2004, and I'm at your show and I'm buying all your merch, you know, and that happens a lot, like a lot more than you'd expect. And I think really, I don't even think I'd have a career without Napster and all that. Like that those were like the moments when people discovered what I did in my first band stuff, which is called Anonymous INC.
Yep.
And yeah, it spread. My first solo stuff, it all spread via Napster, and then just AOL Instant Messenger. Like people were just sending each other MP3s, and yeah,
MySpace.
I'm all for it. In the end, it's kind of like, what, you can't control everything. If people are gonna in a world just that drowning in content and information and music, if you choose to listen to what I do, I find that to be an awesome compliment, because there's just so much other shit you could listen to.
You played on 5 continents, as I mentioned in the intro, including at least 10 tours of Europe to go along with shows as far away as Japan, Vietnam, and Thailand. So I'm sure every aspiring musician out there would love to know, what the hell is your secret?
It was no secret. One of my secrets was book your own tours. There's no secret to that. It's just like I started booking my own. I started just making contacts a lot of places, but I got really lucky as well. I fell into a kind of niche scene of this particular kind of weirdo underground hip hop, and there was a small fan base for it everywhere. And I was collaborating with guys that were a little older than me that were really like cult heroes, you know, like people from Anticon and the Shapeshifters and Project Blowed, and it was all, you know, those names may not mean much to the general listener, but those acts and crews were hugely influential within, like, it was almost like a new hardcore, you know. It was almost like a new, you know, punk. It was like lo-fi, weird, super progressive hip hop coming out mostly from the West Coast. And I got lumped in with that, and I got really lucky.
Well, so I think luck has it's a part of it, but your hard work and persistence paid off, because as I mentioned in the intro, you're basically the ambassador to the indie hip hop scene. I mean, when you mention hip hop, your name is the first one to come up. Oh yeah, Ceschi.
Yeah, you know, here in New Haven specifically, I didn't have a lot of followers, and it was more like I just started booking shows for people coming through town, and I eventually got to the point where it was like every month, and it became a thing. You know, I remember it was really started when in 2008 when we started Fake Four. I started trying to do shows at Cafe 9 and stuff, and Paul remembered me from taking guitar lessons when I first moved to Connecticut. He was friends with one of my guitar teachers, and I was like a little, like, you know, my early teens, and yeah, he remembered me, and he was like, oh yeah, sure, have a Sunday night, you know, like,
yeah,
and just went from there. The shows just got cooler and cooler, and you know, we fill them.
yeah, you definitely do. I've seen you perform alone and with a band. Which do you prefer, and why?
Oh, they're just like different experiences. I love playing with a band. I think that's it's more interesting for me because I've just performed alone so many times. But the flexibility of performing alone is really cool too. Like when you're with a band, you can't necessarily be like, oh, I'll just completely change the set list.
Yeah.
You know, when I'm alone, I could just be like, oh no, I'll do all songs from 2004 today. I just feel like doing that, you know. So, yeah.
I'm not sure if it's the same song you do, but I've seen you several times, and I love when you do this. Either you alone or you and your brother David goes out with a bench and plays drums. You go out into the middle of the floor, and the crowd is going nuts. Is that a specific song that you do that for, or is it just whatever you?
Is it the one where we both play percussion? Because
yes.
Yeah, I do that. We do like a version of Forever 33 like that. Yeah, that's really fun. It's really, I love playing with my brother and Max and Jane and Alyssa, and I mean Storm. Our band for Sat Fat Luck was super cool.
Yeah,
Factor was there too, and Mo. You know, it's cool. It's really fun. I love playing with I love the energy other people bring. But yeah, as I said, there's something cool about the solo thing too. It's almost like it's almost like being like a stand-up comedian or something. Like it's like you really have to control a space in a different way. It's a good exercise. They're different. They're just different animals. So.
Speaking of that, you and I performed together, sort of. Ian Cunningham has a show in New Haven. It was basically like a gong show / variety show. I was a judge, but then I did my stand-up acts. I did stand-up comedy for a while, and you were the featured artist. So we had a chance to perform together.
Trinity Bar? Where's that?
I think it's Trinity Bar in New Haven.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah, that was like a super last minute. I think I had just gotten off tour, and yeah, that was cool.
Another thing that I saw you do, which I thought was great, somewhere in Hartford, an improv group took all of your stories and then they acted out your stories. That was great.
Improv. That was really different. Wow, that was really cool.
How did they contact you?
Yeah. Two of the members are big fans, big supporters. Really cool people.
That was a lot of fun. So you would go up, tell a story, and they're like, all right, we'll be right back. They'd act out the story, then you go and tell another story.
Yeah, it was such a neat moment.
It was fun. Now, when you go on tour around the world, like I mentioned, 5 continents, all over Europe, do you bring the band or you normally tour alone?
I've brought the band I've brought my brother and Max for some special festival shows, but I can't really afford to bring the band. It's just too expensive to bring everybody, unfortunately.
Well, you mentioned before sleeping under bridges, sleeping on floors. Is that basically what touring's like? Like, how do you get when you get to, say, Japan? How do you have do you have like hotels booked, or do you just sleep in your car?
Yeah, these other countries are really, really accommodating. They're like, Yeah, I don't really do the sleeping in cars anymore. I get hotel rooms booked for me, or a lot of times the venues will have their own apartments in them. It's pretty
Oh,
amazing.
really?
It's a really
Yeah.
regular thing in Europe. And they'll feed you dinner and snacks, and then in the next morning they wake you up and feed you breakfast.
Wow.
That's the thing. It's crazy.
You
Yeah.
see a lot of difference with the audience, say from Europe to America. Do you see that
Yeah.
the audience is a little bit more?
It's very different.
Yeah. What's the difference that you see?
In other countries, there is just I think there's just a different show going culture. It's not as much about getting rowdy and partying and stuff. And, you know, it could be silent out there. Like, I don't know, like what, they could be super into it,
Yeah.
but they'll be like hanging on to your every word. And then, when the song is done, it's like a roar. But you know what? Like, they're not like fucking like heckling you or like, I mean, not saying that my fans are really hecklers, but
I know what you're
like,
saying.
it's just more rowdy out here, and there's a different show going culture. Like they have these like so many cities and towns have um a, a a tradition of setting up these shows in teams. Like they have teams that bring artists to town and set up shows, and it's like, oh, did you see that? My internet connection is unstable.
Yeah, it's good now.
Okay.
You froze. I mean, I could still hear the audio, but you froze for a second. But it's good.
Yeah, I was just saying. So in a lot of these, for instance, in the Czech Republic or whatever, there'll be just a tiny little town, but there'll be like a group of like 5 to 7 friends who organize shows, and this person is going to like cook the vegan food, because it's like there's like a culture
Yeah.
of like of that as well. Like vegan food is like a part of it. Like they're all like openly anti-fascist. So it's like a big like it's so funny to me, like hear Americans finally like discovering what anti-fascism is, and for like as if it's like a new thing. It's like, no, it's been around since like Nazis, like like so they act like it's like some new gang that just popped up that Fox News told me about. But yeah, like but out there, all these, it's just this really cool spaces of it's really communal. It's really community based in a different way out there.
I've talked to different musicians, and you might know him, Mike Z. He's friends with
Oh,
your
I know
cousin.
Mike. He's the first person I ever record my music, like
Okay, good.
outside of myself.
I had him on a show, and he said the same thing that you just said. He said when he went to Poland, people there were so appreciative. It's almost like they were saving their money just to go to a show on the weekend. And when they were in Japan, it was the same thing what you just said.
Yeah.
At first, they're like, "Do they like us? Do they like us?" And at the end of the show, yeah, or they'll clap. Yeah. They're a lot more docile, not as rowdy, but they're there and hanging on your every word, and they enjoyed everything. But yeah, that's why I asked you that question, because you've toured all over the world as well, and you had exactly the same response that Mike Z had.
That's funny. Yeah, I've known Mike Z since I was little. That's crazy. That's awesome.
I used to perform with his band. My band opened up for Radium and Screecher.
Oh wow. Okay.
That was back in long before you were probably about 4 or 5 years old back then. But
Jeez. Yeah, I remember like Smoke the Prophet and stuff.
Yes, that was a little bit after, like when I got out of the music scene. I went into radio for a while, but that's when he was in a band with your cousin, Smoke the Prophet. We talked about that.
Marijuana acoustic harmonies. But yeah, I was gonna say something else, but yeah, there's just a different appreciation, and the thing is, I love shows in the United States as well. Yeah. Like the rowdiness of like a New Haven show is like so special. You know what I mean? Like it's very rare. It's very rare. But yeah, I miss it a lot. as well, like during pandemic. But
hopefully we can get back to this. And speaking of that, the show's not going to air before that, but this coming weekend I'm going to see you. You're performing in Bridgeport.
I am October 3rd. Yeah, hopefully it goes well. It's going to be a little experiment.
Now it's an outdoor concert because socially distanced. What happens if it rains?
I think they'll reschedule it. Yeah.
Okay. Because I want to buy tickets. I'm saying it was $25, and then I wasn't sure if it rained, that would be refunded, or if it's just going to be rescheduled.
I think rescheduled. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, hopefully we get back. I mean, I don't know when it's going to happen, but hopefully there's some kind of normalcy when we have shows like at the State House again, where everybody's going nuts, stage diving, having a great time, dancing around. I would love to get back to those times.
For sure. Yes, you know.
That's why I feel bad. I've been going to a lot of concerts this summer, and it's all outdoor shows, and I feel so bad for the bands because like I told you, I was in bands before. I know you feed off the energy, and when I see people sitting at tables, I'm glad that they're having shows, and now they're doing shows at drive-ins too. But it's not the same because the band is playing there, and everybody's sitting there going, "Yay!" And I could tell that they want that feedback, and it's just when you don't get it, it's sort of like, okay, let's do the next song. But you feed off the energy.
The way I'm approaching it is because I've been doing a lot of live streaming during all this. The way I approach it is just we gotta just look at it as a different thing. I can't expect. Yeah. It's just like I said, the difference between a band show and a solo show. They're just different animals, an outdoor sit down social distance show is just a different animal. I'll try to make the best of it, whatever that is,
Oh, yeah. Now, you've been quoted as saying that you have decided to stop making records as Ceschi. Why?
Yeah, I want to challenge myself and kind of focus on other projects, especially band projects, just other stuff. I feel like
other bands you're not a part of, or other music that you want to play with other people.
My band with my brother and Max, we have recorded a lot of great material that is just I've never been able to focus on it or put it out just because I've been so overly focused on my solo stuff. And I'd love to switch that. I hope people still follow it and check out what I do, but I'd love to be part of a more communal thing. You know what I mean? I'm not a person that believes in staunch individualism or something. I really am more interested in building things with other people. So I want that challenge, and I think it'll be a challenge, but I think it's time. I think I want to make I like the idea of whatever. There's something really specific to it as well. The Ceschi discography is basically being 20 years old to 40 years old, and that's what I want to leave it as.
Yeah, no, I love that. But also, you mentioned being communal. I think on your Ceschi albums, you are very communal. I don't know how many songs I see, name of the song featuring this musician, this song featuring that musician, and you bring people up on stage all the time. They sing with you. So I mean, even with your band now, you're very communal, and you bring everybody together. That's what I mean. Again, the ambassador.
Yeah, I'm just not into having all the attention myself either. I'd rather share that, and that's just never been the kind of person I am, and I kind of fell into it because of necessity, because it's just so much easier financially, logistically, to be a solo artist, but I don't I never really wanted to do that. I wanted to do stuff with other people all the time. So yeah, I think I think it'll be a cool challenge, and I'll still continue to play shows as myself long after. I just think I'm gonna limit the discography to a specific time period in my life, and that'll be it. I like that. It's I studied history, and I was an American studies major, and what we study are cultural artifacts, so I'll bring that up once in a while, and it's analysis of cultural artifacts. And I feel like after a certain period, after a while, a lot of artists kind of they just keep making stuff out of like for like financial stability. Like I never want to be that. I'd rather challenge myself and even hurt my wallet in the long run by by challenging myself, just because I think that's no way to live, is just living for what's easiest to do, you know.
No, I respect that. Plus, also, if you just made a song to sell a couple records at first, people might buy it, but after a while, they're just like, he's just phoning it in. But if you stick to what,
and that happens just so much, especially in hip hop. It's just like it happens like a sad amount, and I just don't want to be that. And I also feel like another thing is that I feel like people have come to expect certain sounds from me as Ceschi, and I want to challenge myself and like branch out and try different shit. And I'm definitely not just doing folk rap, you know, like that's not the only thing I do. And eventually when you build a brand and you build a following, expectations come with that. And I'm not really into expectations. Like my whole idea was to just challenge expectations. When I never wanted to look like a rapper, but I wanted to be able to rap better than the most looking ass rapper in the room. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I always like wanted to just fuck with expectations. That was always the thing that motivated me. So now that people expect certain things from me, I think I'm just ready to make one really, really good record, one more really, really good one. And
now, that could be the last one, Francisco Hope. Are you going to release that, do a tour with that if we get back to normal?
and I have so much material that there might be like some sort of companion piece to it after, that's very special and rare, but that'll be the last like official. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about
I won't put it out until I could tour. That's just how it is.
No, I don't blame you, because if you put it out now, people might like download it, and then by the time we get back to normal, people have forgotten about it. So yeah, I agree with you. Like that's why movies are being not being released right now, and other things in the arts. Like we're gonna hold off. So I agree with you. So wait until you're able to, like, hopefully sometime next year.
My goal is November 4th, 2021.
Okay.
That's my current goal for my last record, and I might tour that for 4 years. Who knows? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going, like, people act like it's like full on retirement. It's not. I'm not like quitting music like some of my friends have done. It's I'll share and I'll play shows. I'm ending a discography and making it an era. Like a lot of my favorite bands, probably my most favorite bands, didn't make all that many records. You know what I mean? And so I'm really interested in the idea of a discography and like what that means, and having it be like well curated, and so that's part of it too.
I like, well, your attitude is put out the best music that you can, and you're not confined to just one genre, which I love. So I mentioned in the beginning, punk, rap, rock, pop. I mean, and that one song, Take It All Back, you do it all in one song. So you've definitely proven that to expect the unexpected. I think your fans know by now. The people who maybe don't know you as well as your diehard fans might say, okay, I expect this to be like that. But once they start listening to some of the other albums from you, they'll realize, like, all right, he's got a lot here.
Yeah. I think that was a big reason for Sans Soleil, the album. Like the last one I put out was like, I wanted it to just be a free for all, but also like have a story to it and a concept behind it. But genre wise, it's just everywhere. So yeah.
Did you ever think of coming out with a DVD? I had an idea for you. You should to show what the different types of music scenes are in different countries. You should do like one song from here, one song from Poland, one song from Japan, and then and show the different, or maybe even do like the same song with different audiences.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Like looking back, there were certain shows where I really wish they were filmed because they were so special to me. I can remember some of my shows in Prague, or like Switzerland and Japan and Laos and like Australia. Like Yeah. I really wish some of it was documented, but yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe it
go ahead,
wouldn't.
sorry.
Maybe it wouldn't feel the same just filmed. I don't know.
Yeah, that might be true. But you made I think you mentioned it somewhere. You said you can go to all these different countries and people are singing the lyrics to your songs. So I mean,
Yeah.
you have it's not like you go there as an unknown to these different countries. You've made a place for yourself by touring.
Yeah, there's a little scene for what I do. You know, I got pretty lucky to make music that had kind of a, I don't know, a following for that style of music. Yeah.
So I know we talked about this a little bit, but what's next and where can people find you?
I don't even know what to tell you about what's next. I'm still kind of deciding that. I've been recording a ton of acoustic band material right now, so I don't know. It might be a split release with a friend of mine, and the final, and of course, Bring Us the Head of Francisco Falls, the final part of the trilogy, is coming out next year. I don't think anything's coming up. Yeah, nothing else coming out this year. I did do a 7-inch with my friend C.L. Hughes. That's the pre-order is actually already sold out for that, but we have some stuff together. I have some stuff. I have a bunch of random stuff basically coming out. Some re-releases. One of my records from 2010 has been re-released, and you could order that on Bandcamp, fake4.bandcamp.com. Yeah, just follow me on social media. CESCHI is how you spell my name. I don't know what else to say. Just if people want to check in, that's where to do it.
All right. Well, I definitely highly recommend buying all your albums. I have not heard one from Fake Flowers all the way to Sans Soleil. They're all great.
Thank you. I had no idea you liked it that much. That's so cool.
I do. I love your music. I've been following you for years, and
yeah, I know you have, but I kind of always looked at you like, oh, he's like knows my cousin, and you know, I never knew that you were actually like really check the shit out like that. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely a fan of your music, and I keep up the great work. And I cannot wait to see. I can't wait to buy your book of poetry.
One day, yeah, that'll be one day. All right, man. Well, thank you. This is a really unique interview. Thank you. This is like such a different kind of interview. There's so much Connecticut-centric stuff here. I dig it.
I love it, man. It was great having you on the show, and I'm looking forward to seeing you. I know this is not going to be released before then, but I'm going to be seeing you Saturday at your show in Bridgeport, and then when the show is released, check them out on tour because you will not be disappointed. That wraps up another episode of the Claus Corner, the Zoom edition. I would like to thank my guest singer, songwriter, guitarist, and performance artist, Ceschi Ramos. I would also like to thank you, the viewer, for tuning in. Enjoy your day.